Picture this. It's late 1944, the absolute dying days of World War II. The Third Reich is collapsing in on itself. You've got Allied forces closing in relentlessly from the west, and the Soviet Red Army steamrolling everything in its path from the east. By all standard logic, the war is mathematically, undeniably lost for Germany. But deep underground, hidden away in the cold, damp shadows of a heavily guarded mine, the High Command isn't acting like a defeated power. Instead of waving the white flag, they are pouring unimaginable, staggering resources into a top-secret project. A project that completely and utterly defies the known laws of physics. Today, we're stepping into a chilling piece of history, a place where hard science bleeds straight into the supernatural, to uncover a mystery that has been buried in the shadows for decades.
So, forget the V-2 rockets for a second. Forget the experimental jet fighters. Beneath all the layers of wartime propaganda, there was a Black Ops program classified as absolutely decisive for the outcome of the war. Its code name? Project Kronos. Named, fittingly, after the ancient Greek god of time. Now you might be thinking this was some ultimate doomsday device meant to level cities or wipe out advancing armies, but it wasn't. According to declassified documents and the desperate eyewitness testimonies that have trickled out over the decades, this machine was allegedly designed to warp reality itself. The ultimate weapon of war, it seems, wasn't destruction at all. It was time travel.
To understand this, we have to go deep inside the Wenceslaus mine in the Au Mountains of Poland. Here, a massive underground complex was carved straight out of the living rock by thousands of prisoners. And right in the center of a heavily shielded, ceramic-tiled room, chained firmly to the floor, sat Die Glocke, the bell. It was an intimidating piece of hardware, a heavy, dark metal object, about 9 feet wide and 12 feet tall, looking exactly like a massive, sinister church bell. But crack open that thick casing, and inside it was an absolute nightmare of engineering. It housed 2 massive, counter-rotating cylinders that emitted a deafening, heavy mechanical hum. A sound so deep and powerful, witnesses said it vibrated right through the chest of anyone standing near it.
But here's where it gets truly bizarre. Those cylinders inside the bell weren't just spinning empty air. They were filled with a highly classified substance codenamed Zerum 525. Eyewitness accounts describe it as this highly volatile, violet-glowing metallic liquid. Based on the records, it was likely a deadly, highly radioactive cocktail of mercury, thorium, and beryllium peroxide. Imagine this. You take this glowing purple liquid and you spin it in opposite directions at thousands and thousands of revolutions per minute. The goal? To create a massive torsion vortex. We're talking about a localized electromagnetic and gravitational field so incredibly powerful that its shear force was literally designed to create a shear in the very fabric of space-time.
Now, you have to ask yourself, where on earth did the scientists of the 1940s find the blueprints for a machine that sounds like it belongs in a sci-fi movie? Well, astonishingly, the answer might actually lie in deep antiquity. It's a known fact that the regime's elite forces relentlessly scoured the globe looking for ancient artifacts and lost esoteric knowledge. And researchers point directly to 11th century Indian texts written by King Bhoja, specifically a manuscript called the Samarangana Sutradhara. This ancient text detailed what they called vimanas, these legendary flying machines powered by, get this, heated mercury spinning in vortexes. When you look at the alleged blueprints of the Nazi bell, they eerily, almost perfectly mirror these 1,000-year-old descriptions of mercury vortex engines capable of defying gravity.
But there was a catch, a massive one. King Bhoja explicitly wrote in his texts that the final, most crucial steps to actually building these machines were deliberately omitted. And he said it wasn't out of ignorance, but specifically to prevent their catastrophic misuse by humanity. He literally warned the future. But, desperate, cornered, and driven by a very dark obsession, the architects of Project Kronos completely ignored that ancient warning. They genuinely believed that by mastering this torsion field, they could manipulate history, rewind the clock, and completely rewrite their impending, inevitable defeat.
Of course, trying to play God and defy the very laws of nature comes at a horrific cost. And I mean horrific. When they first fired up the bell, the physical side effects were beyond terrifying. Inside the testing zone, plant life didn't just wither away. The cellular structure of the plants collapsed entirely, turning them into this foul, black, greasy sludge. In animal test subjects, liquids spontaneously separated. Their blood literally crystallized inside their veins, piercing their internal organs from the inside out. The scientists standing in that room, even while wearing heavy rubber protective gear, reported severe metallic tastes in their mouths, devastating vertigo, and a rapid, agonizing breakdown of their own bodily functions.
60. That is the approximate number of top-tier, brilliant scientists and engineers who worked on Project Kronos. And the tragic part? They didn't just die from the brutal radiation of the machine. When the war was undeniably lost and the Soviet Red Army was just a few miles away, the order came down from the high command to erase every single trace of the project. To ensure the secrets of the bell never fell into Allied or Soviet hands, all 60 of these minds were executed in cold blood and dumped into a mass grave. The secrecy surrounding this impossible machine was absolute, and it was paid for entirely in blood. And right at the very center of this bloody, sprawling cover-up was this man, SS General Hans Kammler. Now, Kammler was, simply put, an architect of sheer horror. This is the man who designed the gas chambers at Auschwitz, optimizing mass murder into a cold, clinical, industrial process. By 1944, he was incredibly powerful, given total and absolute control over all of the regime's advanced wonder weapons, including Die Glocke. But in May 1945, right as the project was being hastily dismantled and loaded onto massive transport planes, Hans Kammler vanished. Completely vanished, without a single trace. To this day, he remains the highest-ranking official of the regime whose ultimate fate is a total mystery.
The official sanitized story claims that Kammler committed suicide in the final days of the war. But here's the problem. There are 4 completely conflicting accounts of his death, and a body was never, ever found. Because of this, a chilling alternate history has persisted for decades. Did Kammler trade his life, the secrets of the bell, and a new identity in the United States under Operation Paperclip? Or, and this is where it gets truly terrifying, did he activate that machine one last time in that underground mine, managing to escape not through physical space, but through time itself? We may never know for sure, because in 1945, the bell vanishes from Europe and the trail just goes completely cold. The mine is abandoned, the scientists are dead, and Hans Kammler is a ghost. But as the decades roll by, bizarre breadcrumbs begin to surface. Isolated incidents and strange claims that, on their own, sound like pure science fiction. But when you start connecting them to the very specific physics of Project Kronos, they begin to form a deeply unsettling pattern, a puzzle spanning more than half a century.
Let's look at one of those puzzle pieces. December 9th, 1965. A freezing cold night in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. Thousands of people watched a massive fireball streak across the sky and crash deep into the local woods. When first responders arrived at the smoking crater, they didn't find a conventional airplane or a weather balloon. They found a solid bronze acorn or bell-shaped craft. It was about 10 feet tall, had no visible seams, no wings, and the base was ringed entirely with bizarre, unreadable hieroglyphic symbols. The military swooped in immediately, locked down the entire town, and hauled the object away under the cover of darkness. The physical similarities between whatever crashed in Kecksburg and the detailed descriptions of the Nazi bell are just incredibly striking. It makes you wonder, did a desperate 1945 experiment somehow crash land 20 years in the future?
And the echoes of this technology didn't stop in the 60s. Fast forward to the dawn of the internet age, where the theoretical physics of the bell re-emerged from a highly unlikely source. A man calling himself Major John Teeter started posting on obscure internet forums making a wild claim. He was a time traveler from the year 2036. Now sure, Teeter's often dismissed as just a famous internet legend, an elaborate hoax, but his descriptions of how his time machine worked were highly, remarkably specific. He claimed it used 2 counterspinning microsingularities, basically miniature black holes that manipulated an intense gravity field to distort space-time. Furthermore, he warned that traveling back to change history doesn't actually fix your own timeline. It just splinters reality into parallel dimensions. That description deeply, almost perfectly, echoes the exact torsion field physics those engineers in the Polish mine were attempting to harness.
And mapping out those physics actually brings us to a fascinating and truly mind-bending hypothesis held by some modern researchers. What if the beings we so often classify as gray aliens, you know, the ones with the large craniums, the big black eyes, and the frail, highly evolved bodies, what if they aren't extraterrestrials from a distant star system at all? The theory suggests they might actually be our own human descendants, visiting from thousands of years in the future. In this view, advanced future humans have finally mastered the space-time physics that King Boja warned about, and that the 1940s engineers died trying to build. They are just navigating complex time loops to quietly observe their own past, us.
But let's ground this back in our own human reality for a second. Because when you really think about it, the true danger of time travel isn't just the quantum physics or the gravitational anomalies, it's the psychology. Consider a really profound modern thought experiment perfectly captured in a popular recent film. The premise is simple but terrifying. What if Adolf Hitler doesn't die in his bunker? Instead, through some inexplicable anomaly, he magically wakes up in a park in modern-day Berlin. He is completely thrust into our contemporary world. He's confused by modern cars, bewildered by glowing smartphones, but his core, dark, persuasive ideology remains entirely intact. At first, in the story, the modern public just thinks he's a dedicated method actor playing a really provocative prank. They laugh at him. They literally take selfies with him. A struggling reporter puts him on a viral YouTube channel, and before long, he's given his own live television show. But here is where the narrative shifts from comedy to horror. As he speaks, looking directly into the camera lens, he taps straight into contemporary frustrations. He weaponizes modern poverty and isolation. Slowly, the laughter dies down. The audience becomes mesmerized all over again. It brilliantly illustrates that the true danger of the past returning isn't some sci-fi superweapon. It is the terrifying ease with which our society can once again embrace dangerous, divisive rhetoric, so long as it's packaged in a shiny, entertaining new format. Which brings us to our final lingering thought. Whether Die Glocke is currently buried beneath a mile of ice, hidden away in some classified military warehouse, or just lost forever in the infinite loops of space and time, the knowledge of what it represents is still out there. Our technology advances every single day, but human nature remains terrifyingly consistent. The story of this impossible machine isn't just a tale about a metal bell spinning glowing liquid in a dark mine. It's a mirror reflecting our own vulnerability. The secrets of the past refuse to stay buried. So ask yourself, if the absolute darkest chapters of our history were to suddenly return to our present day, in whatever form that might take, are we truly ready for it?